Okay, this is the non-calculated part of practice test number 7. Okay, number 1 here. Okay, the equation above relates the number of minutes x Maria spends running each day and the number of minutes y she spends biking each day. In the equation, what does the number 75 represent? So we have x plus y equals 75. X is the amount of time she spends running. Y is the amount of time she spends biking. So if we add them together, that's going to give us the total amount of time running and biking, which is going to be option C, the total number of minutes spent running and biking each day. Okay. Number 2. Which of the following is equivalent to 3 times x plus 5 minus 6? So we have to distribute our 3. So we get 3x plus 15 minus 6, which is going to be 3x. And then that's going to be plus 9, which is also going to be option C. Number 3, we have a system of linear equations, which means we want to do substitution or elimination probably. So I'm going to use substitution because we already have one of our variables solved for. We already have one of the x's solved for. So I'm just going to do substitution here. So we're going to plug in this y minus 3 into the x in the second equation. Okay, so we're going to have y minus 3 over 2, right? Instead of x, we're going to substitute in the y minus 3 plus 2y equals 6. Okay, we want to get the 2 out of the denominator. So we need to multiply through by 2. We need to multiply everything by 2, right? Everything on both sides, we got to multiply, not square, but we need to multiply everything by 2. So this is going to cancel, and you're left with y minus 3 plus 4y, and that's going to equal 12. Right? We want to multiply this side by 2, and we want to multiply this side by 2. So then those cancel. Right, but you got to distribute, so that becomes 4y and then 12. Combine like terms, we have 5y minus 3. We add 3 to both sides, so you get 5y is 15, and then divide by 5, so you get y equals 3. The only option there with y value of 3 is B. If you wanted to just be sure, you could plug it back in though. So we know x is going to equal y minus 3, so x equals 3 minus 3, which is going to be 0. The other way to do this problem would have been to plug in your answer choices. So we could have just plugged in all these answer choices and tried them out. So they would have to work in both equations. Some of these might work in one equation but not the other. If you wanted to plug answers in, you'd have to check and make sure they work in both. So if we did the first one, we'd have negative 3 equals 0 minus 3, so that works. But then we'd have to check the next one. Negative 3 over 2 plus 2 times 0 equals 6. Well, that becomes 0, so you're left with negative 3 halves equals 6. That's not true, so we know it's not here. 0 equals 3 minus 3. That's true. Okay, and then 0 over 2 plus 2 times 3 equals 6. That's going to be true, right? That becomes a 0. 2 times 3 is 6. So either way you get. Okay, which of the following complex numbers is equal to 5 plus 12i minus quantity 9i squared minus 6i? Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do here is write it out with we want to distribute that negative. So 5 plus 12i, right, and then we want to distribute this negative. So that's going to become minus 9i squared, and then plus 6i. Okay. They even give you a little hint here by reminding you that I equals the square root of -1. Okay, if I equals the square root of -1, we know that I squared is just going to simply equal -1. So on these problems, whenever you have an I squared, you can substitute in a -1. Okay, so we get 5 plus 12I minus, is it getting, it might be a little too close because I think it's getting a little blurry when I, okay, 5 minus, plus 12I minus 9, right, instead of I squared we're going to put -1 and then plus 6I, so this is 5 plus 12I plus 9 plus 6I, that's going to give us 14 plus 18I, which is option D. Okay. Okay, number 5 here, we have f of x equals x squared minus 6x plus 3. We want to find f of -1, so we simply need to plug in -1. We might be able to factor this out, but there's no reason to even try. You have f of -1, it's going to equal, right, instead of x squared, we're going to put -1 squared minus 6 times -1, and then plus 3, and then we're going to divide by -1 minus 1. Okay. So wherever there's an x, instead of x, you're going to replace it with -1. The input here is the x, and the input we want is -1. Okay, so it's asking if we input -1, what do we get for f of x? -1 squared is a positive 1. -6 times -1 is a positive 6. Okay, and then -1 minus 1 is going to be -2, so that's going to give us 10 over -2, which is simply going to be -5, which is option A. A company makes wildlife videos, purchases. A company that makes wildlife video purchases camera equipment for $32,400. The equipment depreciates in value, so it's losing value at a constant rate for 12 years, after which it is considered to have no monetary value. How much is the camera equipment worth 4 years after it is purchased? So it's linear, right, because it depreciates in value at a constant rate for 12 years, so it's going to be a linear function. We know that x is going to be our years, right, our time, right, in years. And then our other variable we can make y is the how much it's worth, its value, equipment's value. We know that after 12 years, the equipment value is worth 0. So we know we can do y equals 0. The equipment value is 0 after 12 years. Okay. We know the starting amount was 32,400, right? That's your starting amount, so that's going to be our y-intercept, so 32,400, right? So our general equation here is going to be the is y equals mx plus 32,400, right? And then we're giving us one of the x's and one of the y's. Okay, so we know that 12m plus 32,400. We can subtract 12m from, or subtract 32,000 400 from both sides. Right, so we're going to have negative 32,400 equals 12m. And then we want to divide by 12, so we want to see how many times can 12 go into 32,400. So 12 can go into, it can't go into 3, but it can go into 32 twice. So that is 24. Okay, bring down the next letter. How many times can 12 go into 84? Let's think, that's 24, 48, 60, 70, so it's 7, right? And then we can subtract 84. Oops. 0, so then 0, 0. So 2,700. So our slope here is going to be negative 2,700. The equipment loses a value of 2,700 every single year. So we know our full equation here now is y equals negative 2,700 x plus 32,400. Surprising they're giving you such big numbers with the non-calculator part. Alright, so then we need to figure out how much the camera equipment is worth after 4 years. So we use the fact that after 12 years it was worth nothing to find the slope. So after 12 years it was worth nothing, we use that to find the slope. Now we have the slope, we can find the value after 4 years. So let me go ahead and erase this. Okay, we're looking for the value after 4 years. Okay, 2,700 times 4, right, you get 0, 0, 28, and then that's 10,800. So negative 10,800 plus 32,400, and then you just want to subtract that away. So I guess this challenges your elementary subtraction. Right, so 0, 0, we got to carry a 1 over here, so that becomes a 1. 14 minus 8 is 6. 1 minus 0 is 1, and 21,600 should be C. So number 6 should be C. Okay, so after 4 years, the camera is going to be worth 21,600 because it's losing $2,700 in value each year. Number 7, x squared plus 6x plus 4, which is the following, is equivalent to the expression above. Okay. So we can multiply these all out is one way, or we can try and complete the square basically. So you have x squared plus 6x. Okay, and we're going to leave a little blank here. Remember, you got to divide this by 2 and then square it. So we want a plus 9 to be here. That way we have a perfect square. Okay, and then we have plus 4. But we've added a new 9, so now we need to subtract away 9 to balance it out. So simply what we're doing is we're going to add 9 here and subtract 9 there. That way we have a full complete the square, because we need this to be a 9 in order to have a perfect square, so we can do x plus 3 squared. Right, so this becomes, right, we factor this, right, x plus 3 squared, right, this part right here. Okay, and then this is going to become a minus 5, which is going to be answer choice B. Okay, we added in an extra 9 here so that we could have a perfect square, which means we can't just add 9, right? So we then have to subtract the 9 at the end. That way we're really adding 0, we're just manipulating the numbers. Okay, the other way to do this problem is simply multiply each of them out. So you can go ahead and multiply each one of these out. again, x plus 3 is really x plus 3 times x plus 3. So this is going to become x squared plus 3x plus 3x plus 9 minus 5. So you're going to have x squared plus 6x plus 4. Okay, and you can multiply all these out and see which one matches up. Okay. That way it'll take a little longer though. Okay, Ken is working this summer as part of a crew on a farm. Here is $8 per hour. For the first 10 hours he worked this week because of his performance. His crew leader raised his salary to $10 an hour for the rest of the week. Ken saves 90% of his earnings from each week. What is the least number of hours he must work for the rest of the week to save at least $270 for the week? Okay, so he earns $8 per hour for the first 10 hours. So $8 for the first 10 hours. The rest of the week, he earns $10 an hour, and we don't know how many hours he has to work. Okay. And we need to figure out the total amount of money he needs to work. So we have to use the savings. So he saves 90% of his earnings each week. What is the least number of hours he must work the rest of the week to save at least two? So he needs to save at least 270. So if we make, let's just call it Y, or total, we'll call it the total. Okay, if we take his total amount that he has made in a week, and we multiply that by 0.90, then 90% of that total is going to be $270. Okay, so we can then divide by 0.9. Okay, again, I'm not sure, shouldn't this be a calculator question? We want 0.9, how many times is 0.9? So let's, how many times does 0.9 go into 270? Well, 9 can't go into 2, but it can go into 27. So this is going to be 3. So 3 times this is going to give us 27. Okay. But keep in mind it's 0.9, right? So we really should multiply by 10. Let's do it that way. Okay, it's easier to not work with the decimal. So this is, we know this ratio is also going to, if we multiply both the top and the bottom by 10, we're going to have 2,700 over 9. We can then divide 9 into 2,700. 9 goes into 27 3 times. 0, 0. Okay, so it's going to be 300s total. Okay. So 300s the total. And then we can solve this. So he made $80 the first 8 hours. And we need to figure out how much hours he had to work the rest of the week. Okay. So one more time before we solve that. We know he made some total amount for the week. He saved 90% of it. So 0.9 or 90% times the total is going to give us $207. And then to solve for the total, we just simply divide both sides by 0.9, which is going to give us 300. So we know the total amount he had to make for the week to save 270 is $300. And then we can plug that back into our original equation. Okay, so 80 plus, we just did that. So we can subtract 80. And we know 10x is going to equal 220. If you divide by 10, x is going to be 22. So he needs to work 22 more hours. Okay, so he worked $8 for his 10 hours, and this is going to have to be $22 in order for him to make the $300. And he needs to make 300 because he saves 90% of it. So 90% of 300 was 270. Okay. Marissa needs to hire at least 10 staff members for an upcoming project. The staff members will be made up of junior directors, who will be paid $640 per week, and senior directors who will be paid $880 per week. So let's, okay. Her budget for paying the staff members is no more than $9,700 per week. She must hire at least 3 junior directors and at least 1 senior director. Which of the following systems of inequalities represents the conditions described if X is the number of junior directors and Y is the number of senior directors? Okay, X is the number of junior and Y is for senior. Okay, so she needs to hire at least 10 staff members. So X is the number of junior, Y is the number of senior, so that needs to be greater than X plus Y, needs to be greater than or equal to 10. Okay. She's got to have at least 10, so these need to add up to at least 10 or more. The staff members will, junior directors will be paid $640 per week, and seniors will be paid $880 per week. So juniors, so $640 times X is going to be the salary for juniors, all the juniors, and then $880 times Y is going to be the salary for all the senior directors. Her budget is no more than, which means it has to be less than or equal to, $9,700 per week. She must hire at least 3 junior directors. So she must hire at least 3 junior. So that needs to be greater than 3. X needs to be greater than or equal to 3. And at least 1 senior. So Y needs to be greater than or equal to 1. And then we can go right down the list. Alright, this one should be greater than. She wants to hire at least 10 staff members. And then B is going to be your option. Matches up with all of our equations. Okay. Number 10, in the equation above, ax cubed plus bx squared plus cx plus d equals 0. In the equation above, a, b, c, and d are constants. In the equation, it has roots -1, -3, and 5, which of the following is a factor. So if these are the roots, these are your x-intercepts. Okay, which means our factors are going to be x plus 1, x plus 3, and x minus 5. Right, and the one that matches up there is x plus 1, right? You gotta switch the signs here, so this is x plus 1, x plus 3, x minus 5. So that's gonna be B. Alright, the expression shown, where x is greater than 1 and y is greater than 1 is equivalent to which of the following? Okay, so first piece of information we have to know, we have x to the -2, right? We know that's going to be equal to x, or 1 over x squared. Right? If it's negative, you just switch it to the denominator. If it's in the denominator, it's negative, you got to switch it to positive. So 1 over y to the -1 here is going to become y. Right, it's going to go up to the top, right, that'll move up, that'll go down. Y to the 1/2 is the same thing as the square root of y. Right, there's really like a little 2 here, not 1, but we don't need to write either one of those for the square root. Okay, then we have x to the 1/3. So again, that's going to equal x to the 1/3. We don't need to write the 1 though, but you should still write that 3 there, right? 1/2, 1/3. Right, the 1's on the inside, the 3's on the outside. So let's put it all together then. Okay. So we have y to the 1/2 is going to become square root of y. Okay. Y to the -1 is going to move up top. X to the -2 is going to move to the bottom because it's negative. Okay, and then x to the 1/3 here is going to become the cube root of x. Okay, which is going to be answer choice D. What number is that? 11, yeah. Answer choice D. Okay, the function f is defined by f of x equals x plus 3 times x plus 1. The graph of f in the xy plane is a parabola, which of the following intervals contains the x coordinate of the vertex. So if we graph our parabola, we know our zeros here, right? Our x-intercepts are going to be -3 and 1, right? If you plugged in a 0 there, right, you have to set, if you did 0 equals x plus 3, x plus 1, you would then have x plus 3 equals 0, x plus 1 equals 0, so our x-intercepts are -3 and, I'm sorry, -1. What did I do? +1? Sorry, let me redraw that. Okay. -3 and -1. Okay. Alright, and we know it opens up because it's positive, so we know our parabola is going to look like this. So the vertex is going to be somewhere between -3 and -1. Okay, so it's not on this interval because it can't be -4. So this one's not going to work, right? This interval would be over here. -3 to +1, yeah, it's on that interval. 1 and 3, it's not on that one. And then 3 and 4, it's not on that one either. Okay, so we know the vertex has to be somewhere between -3 and -1. So the only interval where it's going to be between -3 and -1 is between -3 and +1 here. Right, it's between those two numbers. Okay, that's 12. Yeah, B. Okay, which of the following expressions is equivalent? So what I notice here is you have a remainder, so they're doing division. So you can either do long division or synthetic division. Let's try it both ways here. So I like long division. I never learned synthetic division until I became a teacher. So it's just more natural to me, but we'll do it both ways. Okay, so long division, what do you need to multiply to get x squared? You need to multiply an x. X times x is x squared minus 3x. We change the signs, so those cancel, you get x minus 5. What times x is going to give you x? That's going to be a +1. 1 times x is x. 1 times -3 is -3. Change the signs, so these cancel, and we get -2 as our remainder. So then it should be -2 over x minus 3, which should be answer choice D. Yes. Okay, if you want to do synthetic division, you pick the numbers in front, so 1, -2, and -5. And then we're going to use a +3. Let me do this over here. So we have 1, -2, and -5, and we're going to use a 3. Okay, you're going to carry down the 1. Okay, 3 times 1 is 3. Okay, then we add down, so this is going to be a 1. Okay, then 3 times 1 is 3. And then we add down, that's -2. So our original was x squared was our original. So we're going to go down a degree, because x squared divided by x is just going down 1 degree. So this is going to become 1x plus 1 and then this is our remainder, minus 2 over x plus 1. Okay, either way you're going to get, I'm sorry, x minus 3 over x minus 3. That was what we're dividing by, x minus 3. Okay, so long division I think is much better, but synthetic division is fine as well. 13, 14. A shipping service restricts the dimensions of the boxes it will ship for a certain type of service. The restriction states that for boxes shaped like regular prisms, the sum of the perimeter of the base of the box and the height cannot exceed 130 inches. The perimeter of the base is determined using the length and width of the box. If the box has a height of 60 inches and its length is 2.5 times the width, okay, which of the following is the inequality of the source? Okay, so we have to, so the perimeter, let's start with the perimeter. So perimeter, the base of a prism is a rectangle. So it's going to be, the perimeter is going to be 2, well, let's draw it out. So you have a rectangle, that's the base. We're saying that its length is 2.5 times its width. So if we make the width x, our length is going to be 2.5x. So right here it says if a box has a height of 60 inches, or right here it says its length is 2.5 times its width. So if we make that the width x, its length is going to be 2.5 times that. Okay, and then that's x, and that's 2.5x. Okay, and then we have the height of our box, right, is going to be 60. Okay, so what it's telling us is the sum of the perimeter of the base of the box and its height. So first of all, the perimeter is going to be x plus 2.5x plus 2.5x. So that's 5x, 6x, 7x. So the perimeter is 7x. Okay, we want the sum of the perimeter, so 7x plus 60 plus the height cannot exceed 130 inches. It means it has to be less than or equal to 130 inches. Right, so right here, the sum, that means we're adding, of the perimeter, which is 7x, and the height, which is 60, cannot exceed 130. Okay, and again, we got the perimeter because it says that the length is 2.5 times the width. So that means it has to be 7 times x. Add them all up, right? And then we can solve from here. So minus 60, you get 7x is less than or equal to 70. So you divide by 7, x is less than or equal to 10. They have it written like this because you can't have a negative. So x we know has to be greater than 0. Okay, and then less than or equal to 10, which should be answer choice A. Yes. The expression 1/3 x squared minus 2 can be rewritten as 1/3 x minus k, x plus k, where k is a positive constant. What is the value of k? Okay, so we want to make a perfect square here. So the first thing I'm going to do, because there's a 1/3 in front, is I'm going to pull 1/3 out. I'm going to factor out a 1/3. So we have 1/3. It's the green's visible, right? 1/3 is, let's go back to red. 1/3 x squared minus 2. We're going to factor out 1/3. Okay. So 1/3 times x squared is 1/3 x squared. 1/3 times what is going to give us negative 2. So it's essentially you're saying 1/3 times what, we'll call it y, is going to give us -2. Okay, multiply 3 on both sides, it's going to be -6. Okay, 1/3 times x squared is 1/3 x squared, 1/3 times -6 is -2. So working backwards, we have the right factor. Okay. All right, and now we have a square, right? It's not a perfect square because 6 is not a perfect square, but we wanted to make this x minus something and then x plus something. And that needs to be the square root of 6. Okay. Because when you multiply this out, you're going to get x squared plus square root of 6 x minus square root of 6 times x, and then minus 6, right? Square root of 6 times square root of 6 is 6. And then those cancel, so you're left with x squared minus 6. Okay, times 1/3. Right, so you got to take the square root here of 6. So then k would be square root of 6, which is d. 15 has to be d. Okay. I just did this to show you and double check. Right here is where you would be done. Right, so you factor out a 1/3. Right, so you need to figure out what times 1/3 is going to give you -2. We did that over here. What times 1/3? So I made it 1/3 y equals -2. And it turns out we have 6 because multiply 3 on both sides to get rid of the fraction. Right, and it's got to be -6. And then we're simply factoring this out to x minus something, x plus something, and that something has to be square root of 6 because it needs to multiply together to get 6, and you can't have any x terms in the middle. That was 15 is D, right? Yeah. And 16. Okay, these are now the free response. So easiest thing here to do is just divide by 2. So you get x plus 4 equals 8, and then 8 is your answer. You bubble that in. That's great. The other way to do this is solve for it. So if you wanted to solve, you would subtract 8 from both sides. You'd get 2x equals 8. Divide by 2, so x equals 4. And then plug it in here, so you get 4 plus 4 equals 8. Okay. All right, 17, geometry question here. This is always exciting. MQ and NR intersect at point P. NP is equal to QP, so that means those segments are going to be congruent. MP is equal to PR, that means those segments are going to be congruent. So we have an isosceles triangle, so we know these base angles are going to be equal. And we want to find the measure of angle QMR. So we want to find this one. And that's going to be fairly straightforward because we have a linear pair here. So 180 minus 60 is going to give us 120. Okay, and then since it's an isosceles triangle, we know the base angles are congruent, so we can do 180 minus 60. I'm sorry, 180 minus 120 is 60. So we know that these two angles have to add up to 60. So the three angles of a triangle can add up to 180. So they have to add up to 60. We also know they're congruent because it's an isosceles triangle. So we can do 60 divided by 2, and that's going to give us 30 over here, 30 over here. So QMR is going to be 30. So we bubble in the 3 and the 0 for 30. Okay, 18, the number of radians in a 720 degree angle can be written as a pi, where a is a constant. What is the value of a? So we basically want to convert the 720 degrees to radians. So 720. Again, we want to multiply by pi over 180. Right? If you want to convert to radians, you multiply by pi over 180. If you want to go from radians to degrees, you would multiply by 180 over pi. Right? So if we had let's say 5 pi over 3, and we wanted to convert that to degrees, we would multiply by 180 over pi. But here we're going from degrees to radians, so we want to multiply by pi over 180. Remember, pi is 180 degrees, so pi radians is 180 degrees. That's it's just a conversion. It's basically stoichiometry. 720 degrees, and we want to convert to radians, so pi radians is equivalent to 180 degrees. Okay, so 720 divided by 180. Again, without your calculator, you should be able to do this without your calculator because it's a recognizable number. It should be 4. So then we get 4 pi, right? But if you can't, just think of 18. How many times is that going to 72? And just try it. 18, 36, 54, 72. It's 4. And then you got to add in your extra 0, so 40. I'm sorry, 4. 18 goes in 74 times, so it's going to go into 180. 180 is going to go in 724 times, so 4. Whatever. 4 pi. Okay, but that's not your answer. Sorry. Got to finish reading the question. What is the value of A? A is then going to equal 4. Okay. So we're writing this as degrees, so it's going to be 4 pi, so A is 4. 19. The graph of a line passes through the point 1, 4 and crosses the x-axis at the point 2, 0, 2, 0, and the point 1, 4. Okay, so it looks something like this. And it crosses through the point 0b. And we need to find that. So it's a line, so y equals mx plus b. We need to find the slope though. Your slope is rise over run, or change in y over change in x. So I'm going to use these 2 points. Okay, are going from 0 to negative 4. You can do it either way. I'm just going to go from this one to this one. So 0 minus 4. Okay, your change in x is 2 minus 1. Okay, so we're going to get negative 4 over 1, so your slope is negative 4. You could also just go rise over run, so we're going down 4 over 1, so that's negative 4 over 1. So our slope is negative 4. So our equation is negative 4x plus b. And then we can just plug in one of the 2 points. So I'm just going to plug in this one because it has a 0. So 0 equals negative 4 times 2 plus b. Okay, so that's going to be 0 equals negative 8 plus b. So then 8 is going to equal b, which is our y-intercept here. Okay. Let's 19. Let's just double check. Yep, 8. So first we had to find the slope, and then we have, once we found the slope, we have y equals negative 4x plus b. We can plug in a point to find our y-intercept. And so we know our equation is negative 4x plus 8. If you want to then plug in these coordinates here, you would have b equals, right, y is b, and then x is 0. Right, this becomes 0, negative 4 times 0 is 0, so you're just left with b equals 8. Over here with the expression above, can be written in the form of ay squared plus b. where a and b are constants, what is the value of a plus b? So let's simplify it. We have 7532 plus 100 y squared plus, let's distribute, plus 100 y squared minus 100 times 10, which is going to be 1,100. So if we combine like terms, we have 200 y squared. Subtract 100, that's going to be 7,432. And then subtract 1,000, that's going to be 6,432. If you want to do that formally, we can do 7532 minus 1100. 2 minus 0 is 2. 3 minus 0 is 3. 4, 6. 6, 4, 3, 2. Okay. A is going to be 200 then, right? Because it's ay squared, so a is 200, and b is going to be 6,432. They want the sum a plus b, so we want 200 plus 6,432, which is going to be 6, and then adding 200, so that becomes 500, 600, and so that's 632. 6,632. So basically just distribute the 10, combine like terms, we again can figure out a is 200, right? This is a, and that's b. And then add them together, 6,632. Okay, and that's it for the non-calculator.